I'm really excited about our speaker today. It took me 3 months of persistence to get someone from this company to come speak to us today. And Aaron Amstutz is a passionate material scientist and serial innovator, redefining circular design. As Natural Fiber Welding's Chief Technology Officer, his favorite days are spent in the lab alongside his team, sharing their excitement, getting dirty, and pursuing the next breakthrough. With nearly 2 decades at Caterpillar, designing new materials and exploring patents, he brings a wealth of practical experience and knowledge to Natural Fiber Welding's technical team. He specializes in tailoring the morphology of polymetric materials through novel formulations and groundbreaking processing methods. Aaron leads R&D on their breakthrough material platforms with a deep belief in the importance of high-performance bio-neutral materials. He is excellent at imagining categorically new approaches to material science and encouraging those around him to think outside the box. As a triathlete in his spare time, he tests Natural Fiber Welding's performance textiles firsthand. Aaron is married and has 4 adult children. Please help me welcome Aaron Amstutz.
As you read that, I thought, man, how many buzzwords can I string together in a series to make that sound impressive? Thank you for having me today. Let me grab my show and tell real quick here. You're a bigger group than I thought I was going to have, so I'm not sure how we're going to get these around in time. We'll do what we can. Okay, we'll do what we can. Natural Fiber Welding, for those of you who aren't aware, we're a startup in Peoria. Started up in 2015. Hired the first employees in 2016. I joined at the end of 2016. I was employee number 10. After, as you heard, spending a career at Caterpillar, 20 years at Caterpillar doing materials development there. The Natural Fiber Welding company, let's just talk about the name first. Okay, what's the name? What's the story about Natural Fiber Welding? You don't do steel, right? So Natural Fiber Welding is both the name of the company and name of the seminal technology. So what we do, or what the seminal technology did, is it took natural fibers, and our natural fibers are cotton primarily. So we take natural fibers, we call this yarn, and we do a solvent welding process on it. And so solvent welding, if you've ever done PVC work, you know what solvent welding is. It's basically applying something that dissolves the materials and they bond together. And therefore, the technology name, Natural Fiber Welding, became the company name. As we have grown, and we have grown considerably over the last 5, 6, 7 years now, we've added additional technologies that are not natural fiber welding technology, but we've retained the name Natural Fiber Welding. So when I go to conferences and I get asked about that, lots of confusion, lots of kind of deer in the headlights. I say, just call us NFW. Okay, so hopefully in the future, we'll be just known in the area as NFW, kind of like BASF is just known as BASF. No one knows as Bayernisch, Engelsche, Soda, and Fabrik anymore. Or 3M, Minnesota Mining and Metallurgy. We just know it as 3M, right? So hopefully NFW will become just NFW, and lost to the history will be the original seminal technology that started that. We are now in 4 locations in the area, so I don't know which one you're closest to, but we now have our headquarters, technically headquarters, are at 6533 North Galena Road, right next to Roker Cabinets. That's about a 55,000 square foot facility, and that right now is serving as mostly research and development. We have the back half of the Shopco building over here, the Farmer Shopco building, is now expanded to do our natural fiber welding technology. So we talk about ends of yarn. This is, we'll talk about nomenclature a little bit. Ends of yarn, this is a package of yarn. That facility will be running, I think, 384 ends of yarn doing the solvent welding process. Again, that's the former Shopco building, or part of it. The biggest location we have right now is actually the SC2 headquarters. This is the address is Southwest Jefferson Street. If you would look, Kenny Corner from the Ball Diamond. That's about 100,000 square feet, a little bit more than that. That's where we're doing our Mirum product, which is a leather-like material. That facility has been under operation for us for about a year and a half, 2 years now. We just expanded into the final third of that manufacturing floor, and we'll be filling up that building quite easily. And then lastly, we have a couple of office floors at 401 Water Street for mostly marketing, sales, back office type stuff. So 4 locations in the area. We just passed about 300 employees. About half of those would be represented by the manufacturing part of the operation. About half of that would be other office and engineering and whatnot. My team of researchers, I do run the research team, is about 30 people, just to give you an idea of the size of the company and what we do. The company itself is unique in the biomaterials world because we've taken a different philosophy than most of the other people that are in our space. Our philosophy is that natural materials are really quite amazing, quite wonderful. And it's a shame that most of the biomaterials companies actually tear down natural materials just to build them back up. We believe that nature has actually already assembled materials that are pretty amazing. And all we need to do is we just need to get them into a format or a shape that's more useful. So we take what nature already gives us and builds up from there. That differentiates us from people that are doing fermentation and breaking things down to small building blocks and then trying to build materials up. And again, that puts us in a very unique spot in the natural materials world. And there's a lot of people in this space. We're not alone by any stretch. Within that philosophy, we have taken a hard stance that we're going to be petrochemical free. So all of our products, regardless of what it is, and I'll show you some of the products today, are going to be petrochemical free. And that is not easy to do. The world has become very reliant, not just on the petrochemicals for plastics or for polymers or for films or things like that. We're also very dependent on the additives that come out of that space to provide performance. And a lot of the work we do is trying to find natural plant oils, natural plant extracts, vitamins, minerals that can do things that we've been relying on petrochemicals to do for quite a while. So anyway, that's a little bit about NFW, a little bit of our philosophy. We have a couple of taglines that you'll hear. Nature Reformatted is our first and probably the most accurate tagline. We take natural materials and just reformat them, put them into a new shape to do something useful. We have Start Well, Stay Clean, End Well is a new tagline, which basically describes what we're trying to do. We start with natural materials, so we don't add anything nasty, then we can be pretty assured that at the end of life, they'll be safe to return to the environment. And so with that said, let me go through some of our material platforms. So first off, our namesake technology is, again, the natural fiber welding technology. And again, it's a yarn-to-yarn process. So I call this yarn, you might call this thread. Anything that goes into your garment fabric is actually called yarn. What sews it together is called thread. So yarn is what makes the body of your fabric. And for most of history, it would have been wool and cotton and things like that. And in the last 70, 80 years, synthetics have really taken over. Over 60% of the fibers that are worn today are polyester. Polyester does not have a nice end of life. It's not readily biodegradable. It's not. You've heard about microplastic pollution in oceans, microplastic contamination all over the place. And it is a really big problem because these things don't readily degrade. We believe that most of the reason for people going to polyester is not because they want to wear polyester, it's because polyester garments have performance attributes that were hard to get out of natural materials. And so we're trying to make performance cotton, performance linen, performance hemp. And the natural fiber welding technology allows us to do much of that. So anyway, we start with yarn. We run it through a process where it is partially dissolved in a welding solvent. There's new technology that has been developed in the last 20 years that allows that to be possible. It wasn't possible before now. And we ended up with welded fiber and welded cotton. Becomes then a fabric which we call Claris. So even though we do a yarn-to-yarn process, that's our technology, customers don't buy yarn, customers buy clothing. And it turns out that clothing brands, who we primarily work with, don't want to talk to a yarn person. They want to talk to fabric people. And so we've had to become a fabric company. And we've actually had to hire fabric developers and get knitting machines and do fabric development because we couldn't find people to do it for us. And so the resulting fabrics are things like this. I can pass it around. So that is, it just looks like fabric. Oh, it's so special. No, it's just, you can pass it around. What I will pass, notice though, if you get a chance, the hexagon side of that, if you'll see, this is a bouquet. This would be like going to a golf shirt. This is actually the fabric that's used in Ralph Lauren's RLX polo shirt. It's got welded cotton on one side, and that welded cotton has an amazing abrasion resistance. It evaporates very, very quickly, so it doesn't pill, it looks clean. And then you've got conventional cotton up against your skin, which is very soft and helps pull the water away from your skin. So that was a fabric that we had to develop in-house. We couldn't find partners to do the development at the fabric level. So we use our yarn, we use conventional yarn, we combine them together and get a new high-performance polo shirt material, all cotton, no synthetics. So that's one example of something you can buy in market if you want to spend $160 on a shirt. The company, again, started in the textile space with fabric, and Ralph Lauren was one of our first partners. As the company developed and we were talking to brand partners, it was clear to us that the way to penetrate this market was not through the people that actually do the knitting or the dyeing. Even though they're very important, you have to have a brand that says, I want that technology, and they'll pull along the rest of the supply chain. So if you ask, like, where does NFW fit in the supply chain? We're way early in the supply chain, right? We make yarn. That yarn goes to a mill that's going to make fabric. That fabric then goes to a dye house that gets dyed and finished. That goes to a cut and sew place that cuts and sews it, which is not owned by the brand. And then that cut and sew place packages it and sends it to a distribution, which is finally where the brand starts to see it. But you have to work with a brand way downstream in order to pull that technology all the way through. So that's our model for everything we do, is we're working with final brands. We've got a group right this week in Paris working with Stella McCartney. And there was a fashion show that I can tell you about because it was, anyway, broadcast online, where one of our material ended up in a Stella McCartney purse on the one runway show. You got to work with the brands. They pull it forward. So the story of Natural Fiber Welding is we have this technology. I had joined the company in beginning of 2017, and a lot of the companies that we're talking to are not just in fabrics and in garments, they also have accessories, leather-like materials, purses, handbags, wallets, belts, that type of thing. So we love your story. All natural materials, plants, not plastic. This is great. What can you do in the accessories space? Right, because right now we have animal leather, or we have plastic, polyurethanes and vinyl. What can you do with natural materials? And so I hit the lab literally with a pancake griddle and started making some really bad initial leather-like materials. This is one of my very first samples. It really is terrible. You can pass around. It's kind of embarrassing. But we showed that to some leather experts, and they said, well, this is terrible. It is. But it's interesting, and I think you're on to something. And so today, one of our biggest product lines is leather-like materials. These can get passed around. These are a couple of examples where we have kind of graduated to now we have things that can perform. They can be made into wallets and handbags, and we're not quite doing belts yet, although I'm wearing a Miram belt. These things you can buy. You can go to a website and buy these things. And they're quite good, and they are petrochemical free. They have the durability requirements. The toughest market that we're going after right now is automotive. When you're doing a shoe, I'm wearing shoes that are made of materials. We'll talk about that. Or you're doing something that's shorter lived, there are pretty easy requirements to meet. When you're talking about a BMW car interior, which we're working on, there you have to be sunlight resistant for 20 years. You have to, hot Arizona sun, cold Alaska winters, really, really tough. So anyway, that's where our technology is being stretched, and we are learning a ton about what you have to do to be a true performance material in this flexible space. So we started with accessories and handbags because of the brands we're talking to, and as the word got out, we got more and more demand from all these different segments to expand into these additional markets. By far the biggest market for the types of things that we're doing is footwear. So when you think about a shoe, I'll pull my shoe off, right? You've got, this one has a canvas upper. This is actually our Claris canvas upper. You often have a leather-like material or an overlay. Okay, this is our mirror material as the leather-like material here. And as a material science company, really, which we are, it's like, okay, we've got two of the materials. What about the rest, right? What about the outsole? What about the foam that's in there? And so as a kind of a natural evolution of business development, we had these companies asking, what can you do now for the whole shoe? So, well, let's go to the lab. Let's see what we can do. And so we used some of the technologies that we had developed to make all natural leather-like materials and expanded that into foams. So this shoe that I'm wearing has a foam in the inside of the cup, which is our foam. This is not the best example, but it's an example of one that is like what we're making. Here's a couple more that are a little bit less embarrassing. And then the last thing we went after was the outsole. So, most of the outsoles that are used in shoes right now are petrochemical rubber. And when that wear debris comes off your shoe, and the shoes do wear out, that wear debris is just like any other microplastic. So we asked the question, what can we do to make this 100% natural? Again, no petrochemicals, by using our patented cure system. And so this is actually, you can buy this. This is $140 from Unless. This is called the Degenerate. This is a shoe that uses all our materials.
Love the name.
It's Degenerate because at the end of life, it can degenerate into natural, back into nutrients. Yeah, good.
It's your story.
So this is the first shoe in the market that is all our materials and everything here is circular. And when I say circular, it is important for us to have an end well part of the message. If you think about everything that we wear, everything that we put on our feet, everything in this room becomes trash at some point in time, right? It will become trash. And most of it will end up in a landfill. Today, it will end up in the landfill, but I'm hoping that in the future, there is an end of life that's more like composting for most everything. And if we keep everything clean through its manufacture, use, and its whole life cycle, then it can go back to nature. And so we've been passionate about that. I actually have a soil scientist on my team, and we're doing extraction studies and biodegradation studies and making sure that we're not toxic in anything that we do. And then we providentially were approached by a company about a year ago now, who is in the horse arena market. And they said, in the horse arena market today, people want better racetracks and dressage arenas and whatnot, and they want to use less water in many regions. And today, the only products that are on the market are plastics. And we know that at the end of life, that horse arena sand is not going anywhere controlled. Those plastics will become microplastic pollution. We would love to work with you to develop an all-natural horse arena footing amendment. So we started doing some development, and we said, well, luckily we have like off-cuttings. When you're making a shoe, you've got all these scrap, and we're making panels. We got scrap on the edge. And we said, we know it's clean. We can use that as an ingredient. And so we took some of our scrap and some of our patented materials and then some other biomaterials. And as of yesterday, you can now buy Arena Men's Novian brand horse arena footing amendment. I'll pass this around. You probably don't want to open it up because it does smell a little farmy, but you can. But anyway, that will get added to sand and will help stabilize the soil, reduce water consumption, and lower the impact of the horses as they run and train. And actually, they've got data that shows, I don't have this data on hand, but they have data that shows that horses that train on things that feel more like natural turf do better in races. And horses that train on their footing outperform other horses that didn't get to train on their footing. So it's like a big money thing. So anyway, so that is where we're hoping that most of our stuff will actually come back to us and we can convert it into things that have a end well story. So right now we've got these 5 products. We've got our Claris fabric. We've got our Mirum leather-like material. We've got pliant outsoles, and we've got Tunera foams, and then just recently, 2 days ago, the Novian horse amendment footing. All those are coming out of Peoria. Today we do plan on expanding outside the Peoria area. It doesn't make sense, for example, that something like that's going to end up in Europe gets made in Peoria and they get to ship to Europe, right? You make it close to the site where it's going to get used. Likewise, if in the short term, most leather-like materials are not used in North America, right? Things are made in Vietnam, South Korea, India. Likely we'll have to have manufacturing sites closer to point of use. But we will have North American production, certainly of Mirum. There's a lot of cars made in the Carolinas. We'd be hard-pressed not to put a plant in there. The first plants will always be in Peoria, so we'll prove out the technology here. So if you ever have a chance, or if we do video footage and you can see our facility at Jefferson Street, you will see a massive manufacturing line. We're putting in a line that's capable of making 20 million square feet a year of Mirum. And it's been a 2-year-long project. It will make our capacity go up 10x. That 20 million square feet is literally just the tip of the iceberg in this business. And so we are proving out the technologies, proving out the manufacturing and the materials technologies, hopefully so that someone else says, hey, I want to build a factory that looks like that. Other places in the world, we don't have to own those or operate those. We'll prove out the technology, we'll license the technology. So yeah, that's natural fiber welding in a nutshell. I went really fast, so I have plenty of time for questions. Yeah.
Becky, can you throw the microphone, please? He's using the microphone.
Oh, I'm using the microphone. Okay. Or you can just speak really loudly.
I can speak loud.
Okay.
Sorry, he has it.
Oh, Jeff, Mr. Jeffrey Allen is on it. Okay.
So what is the cost factor? Is it 10% more than the alternative, or what is it?
So cost and price are 2 different things, right? We're using cost competitive materials and scalable processes in all of this stuff. So we're not talking, even though we're working with people like Stella McCartney, these are not only limited to $3,000 handbags. We are trying to price our things in the region of premium leather, like our Mirum is priced where premium leather is. Our textiles are priced where premium textiles are priced. If you compare that to, I don't know if you follow this market at all, but there are other leather-like material companies that are working with mushroom roots. They're coming in at prices like are 4 times where we think we can be, actually where we are, and we can even get lower. So we're very price competitive. I'm hoping that you'll be able to buy a pair of Adidas sneakers with our stuff in a few years.
I have 2 questions. My first one is, you mentioned a couple items, but are you wearing everything natural fiber welding?
I'm not.
Like a daily driver, like a presentation?
I'm not. I don't have my Claire shirt on. The Claire shirt I have is my old running shirt. You don't want me wearing that here. No.
The second one is, you mentioned production initially staying in Peoria. Do you see the headquarters staying here as well?
Yeah. Yeah, as long as I live here. The headquarters will stay here.
I don't know if it was a previous brochure or an annual report or something, but you were making end tables?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
Some kind of-
Okay, no, yes. One of our,
That's
one
a
of our,
long time ago.
yes, one of our biggest product failures ever.
Thank you for reminding him.
This is actually, it's an important point because we had tried to use the natural fiber welding technology to make something like an end table. And it turns out it was the wrong technology. It wasn't dimensionally stable enough. Those things warped terribly right before the show. We said, okay, we're not doing that. So we have made the decision as a company to be technology agnostic. We are very technology based, but we'll use whatever technology is necessary to get us the product within our boundary space. So natural fibers, natural materials, do the least amount of work, get the highest performance. Whether that's a paper making process, whether that's rubber compounding, whether that's resin compounding, we'll do whatever, as long as it's within that boundary space.
Two questions.
Okay.
The first one, your products are patented? Do you have patents?
Yes, I'm very prolific patent.
The second question, will you be, at a certain point, will we be able to go to your store and buy a yard of your fabric?
Oh, I would love to be able to go to the local Joann's and be able to get a yard of my fabric. I don't know how, I can't say too much. There is a store in town that will probably have the first physical location of where they'll get wholesale of all of our stuff and have it in town. It's not public. What?
Is it a secret?
It is, I believe it's a secret. It's in the works. There will be a store in town where you can buy our stuff. Yeah.
So what's you're privately held right now.
Yeah, great question, yes.
So public, trading, venture capital, where are you at on the funding scheme of this?
So yeah, the initial funding, Series A, came from almost all local Peoria people. Wonderful Central Illinois Angels, other local people, doctors, lawyers, business people who invested and believed and they wanted manufacturing and they wanted businesses to grow in Peoria. Wonderful community support. Our Series B was some large institutional investors, some brands. It's important to have some brand partners showing to the market that, hey, we want this. People like Ralph Lauren, BMW, Patagonia. Our most recent close had more representation from institutional investors. We're doing a funding round right now. If you have $10 million you want to invest, just have that. So yeah, we're all equity funded right now. We're obviously selling products, so we have some revenue stream from the product, but that does not offset the 300 people that we have. So it's largely equity funded at this point in time.
Who's your competition, if any?
So the competition is actually, we don't have a direct competitor in the all natural space. And that's a little bit of an interesting point of contention because there's a lot of greenwashing in this area. So there's a lot of people, I'll give you one example. There's a company called Peoria-North, which has had a pineapple fiber-based leather-like material for a number of years now. And all it is it's like a really nasty pineapple paper with a polyurethane coating on the top. And so they would call themselves a competitor. But we look at this like that's nowhere near competition. That's just terrible. And the mushroom people are similar. Like they make a substrate of mushroom roots and then they smear polyurethane on the top. It's like, okay, I guess you call it competition, but in the 100% natural petrochemical free, we're way out ahead.
Well, thank you for being here. Quick question. So on the other end, do you have an idea at this point how long your fabric lasts or how lifespan is?
Yeah, so this is regular cotton. So whatever cotton t-shirt lasts, your Claire's t-shirt will last that long. The Mirum, we keep making advances. So, the formulations, the terrible one I sent around earlier, that one to last very long. These are probably good for the 5 to 10 years. And when we're done with work from the automotive, hopefully it's a 20-year, 30-year type material. We have to just keep discovering new molecules, natural molecules, to provide the protection needed to make it durable.
So this is a cotton-based fabric, not corn. Corn would make more sense than our, but this is cotton.
The fabric that's going around is cotton. Yep.
And where's
Corn
that-
protein hasn't been made into a fiber since 1944.
But where's it sourced then? Is it overseas or?
No, most of the cotton, well, in the U.S., most of the cotton's coming out of Georgia, the deep south.
What do you guys use hemp for?
Oh, so I don't actually use hemp in any of my current recipes. Hemp ends up smelling very hempy. It's not a great thing. So we get asked this question a lot, and I believe that there probably is a place for hemp in some of our product lines. The hemp industry really needs to come along fair ways, because we're taking natural inputs and then just modifying them in small ways. And the hemp market, well, there's a number of different types of hemp plants, first of all, and not all of them are useful for fiber, and not all the fiber types are the same type. So anyway, I keep watching the market and I keep experimenting. I have 700 pounds of hemp fiber at work that I can play with at any time I want, but I haven't found a good use for it yet.
So Aaron, what would be the comparison as your natural products go into landfill versus not natural products, the length of?
Yeah, so great question. At the end of life in a landfill, nothing really likes to dissolve or biodegrade in a landfill. There are anaerobic conditions. You can find newspapers from the 1940s you could probably still read out of a landfill. And so, we're pushing for products that can go back to soil. That's really where we would like to see the technology go.
In your experience as an athlete, is there a future with performance-based materials like compression and moisture wicking, and is there hope here?
There is, yeah. So until I got it really nasty, my favorite running shirt was this running shirt, because the welded cotton evaporates very, very quickly. It doesn't cling to you like polyester clings to you, but still wicks very quickly like cotton. So
That smell.
That's
Why it's the case.
That's why it's in the case. After 30 washes and at 30 wears, okay, but polyester also stinks after 30 washes and 30 wears too, so
Yeah.
I have really nasty acidic sweat.
What's wrong with corn? Why don't you go into corn? I mean, you got a lot of supply around here.
Well, no, there's nothing wrong with corn. In fact, the soil amendment that was going around, it has that as one of the ingredients. Corn protein is an interesting input. We've got some research going on in corn protein. There are opportunities of corn and corn byproducts that can go into our product. We're just only 6 years old. I've got 30 years of inventing left to do. Give me some time.
Am I up there?
I think you're up.
This is an extraordinary story. You are living, working, breathing the American dream.
It's a heck of a lot of fun.
And plus you run. Are you a marathoner?
I can get to mile 17 and then I cramp up, so no.
But we could have businesses come in and speak to us around the first of the year, and we might not come across another organization like you. A good friend of mine commented to me once, all the great products that we use were invented in somebody's garage. I thought that was pretty absurd. That's what we're talking about.
Well, you're more around I'm a rubber like when I'm in the lab, I'm at the rubber mill, and it's the rubber mill I learned on at Caterpillar 24 years ago that was already 40 years old when I started on it. And so we have this old nasty dark brown oily rubber mill that everything starts on, and it's just a heck of a lot of fun. Okay, I think we have like 2 more minutes, so okay.
You said something about natural molecules. Well, I'm way over my head now, but what kind of molecules are there? All kinds, and where do you get yours from? How do you pick and choose?
How do we pick and choose? The how we pick and choose is we often look to things that are already working, the petrochemical alternatives, and then we look for what things on that molecule are actually active, and then I scour the world databases of the natural molecules for which things might have similar functionality that are already available. Believe it or not, a lot of health supplements are rich in really active functionalities that we can use. So a lot of health supplements end up in our lab.
Yeah, I spent my entire career as a chemist, so when I hear certain words, they stick with me. You keep, a number of times you talked about solvents. Well, in my mind, solvent means a certain thing. What are you talking about?
So when I say solvents, the natural fiber welding technology uses a class of solvents called ionic liquids to do the partial dissolution. We recover 99.7% of those solvents, so they're not going out with a product, and we have to do it for economic reasons, and also just because that's who we are. We're not going to let that stuff out.
So that is petrochemical, or?
Yeah, that the working fluid there is petrochemical, but doesn't end up in the product. Okay. I think one more question. One more, and we're done. And I'll have my samples up here if you want to, and I can stay around for a little bit if you have other questions and want to see some samples.
When are you considering to go public?
Oh, when are we? That's a great question. We would obviously hope to go public sooner than later, but to go public, we don't want to be a Rivian. You don't want to go public before you've got your manufacturing ducks in a row. And so it's best if we can hold off until we prove that we are successful scaling in a serious way. It's much easier to get a better valuation and not disappoint the market when you've already done all that good background work. So that would be my guess, is we're still a few years off. Yeah.